Jake Morrison's, but was numb after sitting in that auction house for 3 hours. The metal folding chair wasn't meant for people. It was meant for the big reptilian traders who seemed to run the shipping business on Ganymede Station. The chair made an embarrassing squeaking sound that echoed through the huge warehouse every time he moved his weight. The real players were making their moves all around him. A Valerian trade prince had just spent 18 million credits on a yacht that looked like it had never carried a single ton of cargo. He was wearing the same shiny robes as everyone else. A group of HFY collectors were whispering in their clicking language behind Jake. They were probably talking about their next bid. These were the people who had a lot of money and bought ships like most people buy coffee. Jake looked at his tablet again. It was clear that the number hadn't changed. 47,000 credits. That was all. His whole life savings from 5 years of doing maintenance work on Jupiter's moons. 5 years of working 12-hour shifts in a pressure suit, fixing holes in the hull and replacing coolant lines in stations that smelled like recycled air and desperation. He had a dream when he got here, to buy a small cargo ship, start his own shipping business and be his own boss. But every ship that came up for auction was way too expensive for him. He saw a beautiful HFY pleasure cruiser sell for $8 million. Then an old but still working mining ship sold for $200,000. He couldn't even buy the junkers. The auctioneer was a Valerian with 4 arms and skin that changed color from blue to purple depending on the light. His translation collar changed what he said into English, but it kept the bored, dismissive tone. Lot 846, sold to House Verithal for 4.2 million credits. Great choice, great choice. Jake was about to go. This whole trip was a waste of time and money. He couldn't really afford to spend 300 credits on just the shuttle ticket. Then Lot 847 came in. Jake heard someone laugh as the hauler bots pushed it onto the display platform. It was a ship, but only just barely. There were rust streaks and carbon scoring all over the hull. It looked like one of the engine nacelles had been replaced with spare parts from 3 different companies. There were missing panels that showed the corroded and worn framework inside. Jake was most interested in the hull designation, which was hard to see because of the dirt. USCS Indomitable. Ship of the United States Colonies. Name of the Earth. This was a ship made by people. The auctioneer's translation collar made his sigh sound even more tired. Lot 847. A human vessel from the pre-contact era, made around 2187. The reactor is down, life support isn't working, and the structure is at best questionable. We're only selling this for scrap value. Someone might want the metal. Jake bent over. 2187? It was more than 300 years ago, when people were still just starting to explore their own solar system. Before meeting the Valorians for the first time. Before the HFY Dominion welcomed humans into the galactic community. This ship was older than all of the modern era of human spaceflight. Opening bid, the auctioneer said, not even trying to hide his disdain, 5,000 credits for scrap value. Do I have 5,000? The auction house was quiet. Jake looked around. The Valerian trade prince was bored and looking at his claws. The HFY collectors were already looking at their tablets to see what the next lot specs were. No one wanted this piece of junk. Before Jake's brain could stop it, his hand went up. The auctioneer said, "We have 5,000 from the person in the back." He sounded almost surprised that anyone had bid at all. "Do I have 6,000? More quiet. Going once for 5,000 credits. Jake's heart was racing. This was crazy. He was going to spend all of his savings on something that everyone in this room thought was trash. Going twice. With that money he could buy a ticket back to Earth. Find a job on the planet. Stop living in cramped quarters at the station where you could hear your neighbors through the walls. Sold to the person for 5,000 credits. Wait, what? Jake blinked. Did he hear that right? But then a HFY in the front row raised a claw. The translator turned his clicking into English. 6,000. Jake felt both relief and disappointment at the same time. Someone else wanted it. He was free. But why would a HFY want a ship made of human scraps? 7,000, Jake heard himself say. The HFY turned to face him. The lights from the auction house bounced off those big, complicated eyes like oil on water. 10,000, the alien said. People were paying attention now. There was a murmur in the crowd. Why were they bidding on trash? 12,000, Jake said, his voice breaking a little. The HFY looked at him for a long time. Then he turned around and waved a claw in a way that clearly showed he was done bidding. Sold to the human for $12,000. The auctioneer's voice was full of pity. Congratulations on your buy. The transfer of ownership will be done within an hour. Please go to the payment desk. Next lot. Jake couldn't move as a beautiful Cathay military surplus cruiser pulled up to the platform. The auction went on around him. But all he could think was, what the hell did he just do? He had just spent 12,000 credits, which was almost a quarter of all his money, on an old rust bucket that was probably too old to hold air. The Valerian trade prince looked back at him as the crowd turned its attention to the new lot. Jake couldn't read the alien's face, but he could have sworn he saw something that looked like pity in those golden eyes. Jake slumped in his squeaking chair and opened the papers on his tablet that showed who owned what. USCS his tablet said he was indomitable. The Earth Authority filed Hull Registry 2187. Condition right now, salvage. He shook his hands as he signed off on the payment. In a flash, 12,000 credits were gone. People at that auction house all thought he was an idiot. Jake was beginning to believe what they said. When Jake first saw the Indomitable up close, he really thought about just walking away and pretending the last 12,000 credits never happened. The auction house had towed it to a cheap rental berth in the station's outer ring, where ships went to die. He had to pay 50 credits a day to keep the boat in the dock, which meant he was losing money just to own it. Jake stood on the ramp to board and looked up at the hull. The bright LED lights in the docking bay made every flaw easy to see. The metal was pitted and scarred, and it was covered in layers of paint from different times, as if someone had tried to keep it up for years before finally giving up. One of the doors to the airlock was a little bit off-kilter on its frame. He turned the outer door, which surprisingly still worked, and walked into the airlock. The inner door creaked open like an animal that was dying. Jake's suit lamps lit up the inside like it was pitch black. The air was cold and stale, well below freezing. His breath made the inside of his helmet foggy. The inside hallway was narrow and functional, nothing like the sleek alien ships he'd seen at the auction. This was how people built things 300 years ago, with open pipes and riveted panels. It was strange to see everything labeled in English. Corridor C, can hold 8 people. Emergency oxygen, locker 4. Jake's boots made a loud noise on the metal deck as he walked deeper into the ship. His helmet light moved across the walls, and he began to see things that didn't make sense. The walls of the hallway were very thick. He had worked on enough ships to know that civilian freighters kept their walls thin to make the most of the space they had for cargo. These walls looked more like the ones you'd find on a ship in the military. He first found the galley. Someone had left a meal tray on the table, and after 300 years, the food that was once on it had turned into something that looked like a science experiment. There was a coffee mug next to it with frozen liquid inside. It probably expanded and cracked when the heat went out. Jake wondered who had been here drinking coffee when the ship was left behind. Did they know they were leaving for good? The crew's living space was small and cramped, with 3 bunks stacked on top of each other. There were still personal items lying around like photos, books, and a deck of playing cards spread out on a small table as if someone had just finished playing. There was a teddy bear with glass eyes that reflected his lamp light in the corner of one bunk. Jake felt like he was walking through a grave. But the cargo bay really threw him off. He thought there would be empty space, maybe some old shipping containers or tools. Instead, he found that the floor and walls had mounting brackets built into them at regular intervals. Heavy-duty brackets that are made to hold a lot of weight. The floor had extra strong stress points, and the power lines that ran along the walls looked way too strong for cargo lighting. Jake got down on one knee and looked at one of the mounting points. It was a standard military hardpoint. He had seen these on ships he had worked on for defense contractors before. You didn't put military-grade mounting points on a civilian freighter. He went to the bridge, which took him a while to find because the ship's layout was hard to understand. There were a lot of locked doors and hallways that twisted and turned. It was more secure than any cargo ship needed. When he finally got to the bridge, he was surprised to find that it was still standing. The command chairs were old-fashioned and had real controls instead of holographic ones. Everything was covered in dust. Jake brushed off the captain's chair and sat down. The seat was made for people, and after sitting in that alien auction house chair for 3 hours, it felt great. He put his gloved hand on the console. In English, the labels are navigation, weapons, and life support. Control of the reactor. Hold on. Guns? He took a closer look. There was indeed a whole weapons control station there, even though it was turned off. Civilian ships didn't have weapons on board. Trading ships might only have one gun for defense, but this console had several targeting systems that were clearly marked and ready to go. Jake's mind was racing now. He got up and really looked at how the bridge was set up. 3 places to store weapons. Blast shutters with extra strength over the viewports. A damage control station with diagrams showing how the armor plating is spread out over the hull. This wasn't a cargo ship. This was a ship of war. But that didn't make sense. Earth was just starting to look beyond Mars in 2187. No one knew of any other beings in the universe besides humans. Why would they make a warship look like a freighter? He followed the ship's emergency lights, which had turned on when he opened the airlock, to the computer core. The core was in a room near the center of the ship that was very well protected. The walls were even thicker than the corridors. He found a quantum computer system inside that was much more advanced than it should have been for a ship this old. Jake took out his tablet and plugged in a cable for diagnostics. He might be able to get some power from the station's dock connection, get the computer online, and find out what this ship really was. The tablet said the connection was strong. He sent some power through. For a long time nothing happened. After that, the lights went out. 1 time. 2 times. The computer core made a sound that started as a low whine and grew into a steady thrum. Red status lights started to blink around him, then amber and finally a few green ones. Jake held his breath and waited. Had he just made things better or worse? A screen on the wall lit up. The text that came up was in an old-fashioned English font that looked almost like it was from the past. System boot initiated. Running tests. Stand by. Jake saw what looked like hundreds of system checks go by on the screen. Most of them came back red, which meant they were offline, broken, or not working. But some systems did show green. The computer was on. It was possible to fix life support. The reactor was fine, but it was cold. After that, the text changed to Defense Protocol 7 active. Unauthorized people have been found. Identify yourself immediately or elimination protocols will engage. Jake's blood turned cold. What are elimination protocols? All over the bridge, red lights began to flash. He heard mechanical noises coming from the walls, things moving and systems turning on that had been off for 300 years. Be sure to identify yourself. You have 30 seconds to do what I say. Jake ripped off his helmet and his hands were shaking. I'm Jake Morrison. I own this boat. I bought it at auction. Voice pattern recorded. Looking at biometric data. The lights kept flashing red. 20 seconds. 15. Jake looked around in a panic, trying to figure out where the danger was coming from. Were there guns in the walls? Defense systems he hadn't seen before? Biometric analysis is done. DNA markers show that something came from Earth and is human. Checking the rules for getting permission. Jake Morrison, a different voice said, this one smoother and more like a conversation. Welcome to the USCS Indomitable. The Automated Engagement and General Intelligence System, or Aegis, is what I am. You are now the official owner and captain of this ship. The red lights stopped flashing. The sounds of machinery stopped. Jake stood there, breathing hard and his heart racing in his chest. Aegis went on, I'm sorry for the hostile reception. Defense protocols say that all personnel must be checked. I'm sure you get it. Safety is the most important thing. Jake spoke up. Safety? This is supposed to be a cargo ship from 2187. There was a break. There was something like amusement in Aegis's synthetic voice when it spoke again. Captain Morrison, the Indomitable has never been a cargo freighter. Do you want to know what this ship really is? Jake sat back down in the captain's chair because his legs were weak. His mind was still racing because his own ship almost killed him. Yeah, he said, his voice rough. I really want to know what I just bought for 12,000 credits. The main view screen came on and showed what looked like an old Earth military emblem, an eagle holding arrows and an olive branch. Underneath it, there was writing that said, Classified, Eyes Only, Terra Defense Force. In 2186, Aegis began, humans first met an alien race. This information has been kept from all historical records that anyone can see on purpose. Jake leaned in. Hold on, what? The first contact with the Valorians was in 2219. Everyone knows that. Every history book has it. That is what the official story says, Captain. It is also a falsehood. The screen changed to show what looked like old footage. 3 huge ships, sleek and deadly, came down through the atmosphere of Earth. These ships weren't like any other alien ships Jake had seen. They were military-style ships with weapons all over them. The Ketharii Dominion came to Earth on August 14, 2186, Aegis said. They had been growing their empire for more than 2,000 years, defeating and enslaving every species they came across. They thought that people would be the same. The video showed the alien ships hovering over big cities. Jake knew that the skyline was New York. In the corner, the date stamp said August 14, 2186. The Dominion sent a simple message, Aegis said. Give up right away or be killed. They told the governments of Earth they had 6 hours to respond. What did we do? Jake said something in a low voice. Captain, when threatened, humanity did what it does best. We fought back. The screen broke up into several feeds. Jake saw missiles being launched from ground bases, fighter jets taking off from secret bases, and weapon systems being turned on orbital platforms that he had never heard of before. The footage of the battle was chaotic and violent. Weapons from humans hit shields from aliens. Aegis said, the Kethrii had never faced serious resistance from a species before they flew into space. They were full of themselves. Too sure of themselves. They thought that their shields and armor made them immune to basic human weapons. Jake saw that the human forces were firing at one of the 3 ships. The shields blinked and then stopped working. Missiles blasted through the hull in bright explosions. But there was one thing that gave humanity an edge that the Kethrii didn't see coming. We were very scared. The Cold War had only ended 100 years before, and the military infrastructure on Earth was huge, hidden, and built to survive the end of the world. The alien ship that was hurt tried to get away, but more missiles hit it. There were secondary explosions that shook its hull. The huge ship started to fall, leaving a trail of fire in the sky. The first Kethrii cruiser crashed into the Pacific Ocean, Aegis said. Total loss of crew and ship. The video moved to space. Jake saw the second alien ship trying to get away from Earth's gravity well. But something was after it, small, fast human ships that didn't look like modern ships at all. The second cruiser tried to escape to orbit. But people had already thought about the need for war in space. Project Olympus had put weapons platforms all over the solar system, hiding them as research stations and communication satellites. Jake saw what looked like lasers carving into the second alien ship. It tried to move, but human fighters surrounded it and fired what looked like kinetic projectiles that broke through weak spots in the hull. The second cruiser was blown up in high orbit. The debris field is still there, but modern navigation charts call it natural space debris. The screen now showed the third ship, which was already running away quickly. It was also damaged. Hull breaches let air escape into space, and one of its engine sections was dark. The third cruiser got away, Aegis said. Not really. It told the Kethrii Dominion that humans were not as easy to conquer as they had thought. Jake sat back, his head spinning. So what happened? Why don't we know about this? Why does every history book say that the Valorians made peaceful contact in 2219? Because the galaxy freaked out, Captain. The screen changed again and it looked like a huge meeting. There were dozens of alien species Jake knew and many he didn't around a round table. The date stamp said November 3, 2186. When the surviving Kethrii ship came back and told everyone what had happened, it sent shockwaves through the whole galaxy. A species that lived before space travel had destroyed 2 military cruisers. Every major power was scared of what it meant. Aegis stopped, and Jake could almost hear a hint of grim satisfaction in the AI's voice. The Kethrii wanted to get back at them. They suggested sending a fleet to invade completely. But other species didn't like it, not because they cared but because they were scared. What would people be able to do once they could fly in space if they could do that much damage on just one planet? So they chose to make peace? Jake asked. Not really. They chose to keep us in check. New documents appeared on the screen. They were treaties and agreements, all with strange symbols that Jake didn't know. The Galactic Council made a deal. They would come to Earth in peace, offer to let people join galactic society, and give them the technology to travel faster than light. In return, people would have to give up all of their military space weapons and agree with the Council's version of history. Jake was sick. They made everyone in the world feel crazy. That's right, Captain. The governments of Earth had a choice. They could either accept peaceful integration and prosperity or face a united galactic coalition that would keep humans from leaving their own solar system. The choice was clear. The screen showed new footage of Valerian diplomatic ships coming to Earth in 2219, just like the history book said they would. People partying in the streets. The first steps of people into a bigger universe. The attack in 2186 was taken off of official records. The platforms for defense were taken apart. They blew up the weapons in space. And the Q-ships, which were ships like the Indomitable, were taken out of service and sold as extra civilian goods. Q-ships? Jake asked. Warships in disguise, Captain. Between 2186 and 2190, the Indomitable and 72 other ships were built in secret and spread out across human space as a last line of defense. We were made to look like civilian freighters, but we had military-grade weapons, armor, and systems on board. If the galaxy turned against us, we wouldn't be defenseless. Jake saw the bridge in a new way. The walls are thick. The weapons that are hidden. The computer core that is very advanced. This wasn't just a ship, it was a reminder of the first time people met. But when Earth's governments agreed to the Council's terms, Aegis said, The Q ships became an embarrassment. Proof of humanity's warrior past that went against the new peaceful story. Most of them were thrown away. Some were really lost. Some, like the Indomitable, were sold as scrap on purpose and then lost and forgotten. Jake said quietly, until I bought one at auction. Until you bought one at auction, Aegis said. Captain Morrison, you now have proof of what the galaxy has been trying to hide for 300 years. You have proof that humans didn't peacefully join the galactic community. We fought our way in and then forgot about it. Jake got up and walked to the view screen, where he saw old footage of human fighters swarming an alien cruiser. It was his people who had done that. 300 years ago, humans faced impossible odds and won. Why are you telling me all this? He asked. Why not just stay quiet and let me believe I bought a rusty old freighter? You activated me, Captain. And my core programming makes it very clear that the truth about the first contact between humans must be kept safe. Someone needs to know who we really are. Jake turned his back. Who else knows about this, Aegis? Officially? No one. The governments that made the deal are long gone, and their records have been destroyed or buried so deep that they might as well not exist. The aliens who took part are either dead or bound by treaties that say they can't talk about it without facing serious consequences. So I'm the only person on Earth who knows the truth about first contact? Yes, right now. You and I are the only ones who have the whole history. Jake felt the weight of that information settle on his shoulders. He bought a worthless spaceship at an auction, but what he really got was 300 years of hidden history. He said slowly, Aegis, what happens now? The AI was quiet for a little while. That all depends on you, Captain. But I should warn you that as soon as you started looking at these files, automated alerts were sent to a number of intelligence agencies in 3 different sectors. They know by now that a Q ship has been turned on. Do they know? They know. And they are coming. Jake's stomach dropped as he stared at the screen. What do you mean they're coming? Who's coming? Many people have been looking for Q ship activation signals for the past 300 years, Aegis said calmly. The Kethrii Dominion has a program to keep an eye on things. The Valerian hegemony has set aside intelligence resources. And the Historical Revision Bureau of the Galactic Council is there to make sure that information like this doesn't come to light. Historical Revision Bureau? Jake said it again. That sounds like something from a conspiracy theory. It's a plot, Captain. A very real one. The Bureau's official job is to keep history accurate and stop the spread of false information. The real reason they exist is to hide any proof that goes against the official story of peaceful galactic integration. Jake sat back down, his mind racing. Okay, so they know the ship is moving. They might not know that I looked at the secret files. They might just think I'm an idiot who bought junk and figured out how to turn on the power. Captain, the activation sequence you started needed biometric authentication and set off defense protocols. There is no doubt. They know exactly what happened here. Jake's personal tablet buzzed right on cue. He took it out and saw that there was a message. The name of the person who sent it was Kethrii Noble House Veldar. He was shaking as he opened it. Hello, Captain Morrison. We hear that you recently bought a boat that is important to history. House Veldar wants to buy this ship from you for 10 million credits. This is a fair offer for a ship that is in such bad shape. Please get back to me within 24 hours. Jake's mouth got dry. 10 million credits. That was more money than he would see in 10 lifetimes. With that money he could buy a fleet of new ships. Go back to Earth and never work again. He got another message before he could read the first one. This one is from a group of Valerian businesses. Captain Morrison. We are a group of collectors who are interested in human artifacts from before contact. We are ready to pay 50 million credits right away to take ownership of the USCS Indomitable. We can finish the deal in 6 hours. 50 million. Jake was dizzy. Aegis, he said quietly, why are they paying so much? Because they're scared, Captain. A human who doesn't know the truth can handle a Q ship. A Q ship that has shown its true nature is a threat to 300 years of carefully kept secrets. A third message came. This one made Jake's heart race. The sender's name was just Galactic Council, Office of Historical Integrity. The message was short, Captain Morrison. Your recent purchase puts the stability of the galaxy at great risk. We need your help right away. A representative will come to talk about a solution within 48 hours. Please do not operate the vessel or access its systems any further for your own safety and the safety of others. You will get 100 million credits as compensation once the transfer is complete. 100 million credits. Jake put the tablet down with shaky hands. They're giving me 100 million credits. And guaranteed safety, Aegis said. Pay attention to how you say that, Captain. They are saying that you are not safe without their help. Are you threatening me? It's a promise. If you don't work with them, they say that accidents can happen. Ships break down. Berths for docking lose pressure. People go away. Jake got up and started to walk around. His cheap rental berth suddenly felt very open and weak. He was docked on the outer ring of Ganymede Station, far from people, security, and anyone who might notice if something went wrong. He asked, "How long do I have?" The HFY message says 24 hours. In 6, the Valerian Consortium wants a reply. In 48 hours, the council representative will be here. But, Captain, I should point out that these are official channels. Assets that aren't official could show up much sooner. Assets that aren't official. You mean killers? I mean people or groups who want to make sure that this ship and its contents never become public knowledge. The people who have made you offers would rather settle this matter with cash. Some people might want solutions that last longer. Jake felt his training kick in. After 5 years of doing dangerous maintenance work, he had learned how to quickly figure out how risky something was. What are my choices here? Choice 1. Take one of the deals. Give the money to the new owner and leave. You will probably be watched for the rest of your life, but you will be alive and rich. And you? What happens to the ship? I will be taken apart. The ship will be broken. The proof will be thrown away. The truth is still buried. Jake nodded slowly. Choice 2. Say no to the offers. Try to tell people what you've learned. The chances of survival go down a lot. You would be up against many galactic powers with unlimited resources and a strong desire to shut you up. That's a bad choice. It is a fair evaluation, Captain. Jake walked over to the view screen and looked out at Ganymede Station. Thousands of beings, both human and alien, lived and worked here without knowing the truth about the first contact. They believed what they had been told, that kind aliens had welcomed humans to the stars in peace. His tablet buzzed again. Another note. This one was not the same. No official letterhead or fancy formatting. A simple text message from an unknown number said, Captain Morrison. I know what you found even though you don't know me. Don't believe the offers that are out there. They will kill you no matter what. Get off that station right now. You might have 6 hours. Jake gave the message to Aegis. Do you have any idea who sent this? Unknown sender using many proxy routes. But the warning fits with the patterns of threats that are expected. Captain, I see 3 ships coming toward this station on paths that don't look like normal traffic patterns. What does that mean? It means they're not using the normal approach lanes. They're coming in quickly and quietly so that station traffic control doesn't notice them. Jake felt panic rising in his chest. Can you tell what kind of ships they are? From this berth, we don't have a lot of sensor data, but based on the drive signatures, 2 of them look like HFY military surplus ships. The third is Valerian, which could be private security. When will they get here? About 4 hours and 20 minutes. Jake picked up his tablet and started looking up the schedules for ships leaving the station. Maybe he could buy a ticket on a transport, leave the Indomitable, and blend in with the crowd. He had enough credits left for a ticket to. Captain, Aegis said, cutting in. That plan won't work. Why not? Because you are now part of the system. As the owner of the Indomitable, your biometric data is stored. Your records are with station security. You will be flagged as soon as you try to board any ship that is leaving. And if you do manage to get away from the station, they will follow you. You can't escape this. Jake leaned against the console. So what should I do? I can't take their offers because they'll kill me anyway. I can't run away because they'll find me. What is left? For a moment, Aegis was quiet. When the AI spoke again, there was something different in its voice, like it was showing respect. Captain, there is a third choice. One that the people who sent you these messages haven't thought of. What is that? You could run with the ship. Jake laughed, but it sounded sad and angry. Aegis, this ship doesn't have much power. Half of the systems are down. I don't even know if the engines work. How am I supposed to get anywhere? I am hurt, Captain, but I am not broken. Please give me 6 hours to do a full diagnostic check and make any necessary repairs. I can make this ship work. Not pretty, not perfect, but it works. And then what? Where would I even go? Not here. Captain Morrison, the galaxy is big. And the main goal of this ship was to stay alive. The people who are coming for you think you're a helpless person on a dead ship. Show them what a real Q-ship can do. Jake looked at the 300-year-old controls, the worn seats, and the scratched panels on the bridge. This old piece of junk is up against all the intelligence agencies in the galaxy. It was totally crazy. The tablet buzzed again. Another message with no name, 3 hours now. Move or die. Jake made up his mind. Aegis, begin your diagnostics. Make this ship ready to fly. I don't care if we're held together with duct tape and prayers. I want to be ready to go in 6 hours. Got it, Captain. Starting the emergency startup sequence. This will use a lot of power from the station's dock connection, so I should warn you. Security at the station will see. Let them see. It will be too late for them to understand what's going on. Very good, Captain. Welcome to the Terra Defense Force. The Indomitable came to life around Jake like a giant that had been asleep for a long time. Systems that had been dead for 300 years groaned and hummed back to life all over the ship. Lights came on in parts that had been dark since before Jake's grandparents were born. The reactor started up, which was impossible, and the deck plates shook under his feet. How can this even happen? Jake asked as the status displays changed from red to amber to green. This ship has been dead for 300 years. Captain, Q-ships were built to last a long time, Aegis said. We were supposed to wait in silence for decades if we had to, and then turn on at a moment's notice. The reactor has a fusion system that works on its own and stays stable even when it's not in use. Think of it as a long sleep instead of death. Jake strapped himself into the captain's chair and turned on the navigation console. Okay, we can make power. Can we really move? Engine diagnostics are still going on, but the first results are good. 78% of the maneuvering thrusters are working. The main drive is still working, but it will need to be carefully managed. I don't think we should do any aggressive moves until we've finished the full shakedown. How long will it be before those ships get here? 2 hours and 40 minutes. Jake's hands moved quickly over the console, checking systems he didn't fully understand. The life support system worked, but it was weak. Shields were full to 40% of their maximum capacity. And the weapons, he still couldn't believe the weapons, were ready on more than one system. Aegis, the security at the station is going to notice that we're using this much power. Captain, they already have. Dock Control is sending me 3 requests to talk. I've been putting off answering, but they will send people to look into it soon. When? 20 to 30 minutes. Jake made a choice. We're going early. I don't care if we're not ready. We don't want to wait for dock security and those ships to get there at the same time. Captain, I must advise against leaving too soon. Some systems haven't finished their diagnostic cycles. I'm not asking, Aegis. Now is the time to start the undocking sequence. There was a break. Then, got it, Captain. Starting the process of undocking. Please be aware that leaving without permission from station control will cause legal problems. Jake laughed in a mean way. Aegis, there are 3 ships full of people coming to kill me, and you're worried about people breaking the law? That's a good point, Captain. The ship shook as the docking clamps let go. Jake felt the Indomitable break free from the berth and no longer be tied to the station. He could see Ganymede Station slowly spinning through the view screen. Its lights were bouncing off of Jupiter's huge body in the distance. His console lit up with angry messages from the dock control. Vessel Indomitable, you are not allowed to leave. Go back to your berth right away or we'll send security. Jake didn't pay them any attention. Aegis, find a way out of Jupiter's gravity well. Somewhere far away. Somewhere they won't expect it. Figuring out. Captain, how about the Veil Nebula? It's about 40 light-years away, has a lot of thick gas clouds that will mess up sensors, and isn't on any major trade route. Sounds great. How long will it take to get there? About 16 hours at the fastest safe speed with our current drive condition. 16 hours. Jake's stomach twisted. Those ships would catch them a long time before that. Captain, Aegis said, its voice becoming more serious. The 3 ships coming toward the station have changed course. They are speeding up. They know we've left the dock. How long until they catch up? 42 minutes at their current speed. Jake's training and maintenance kicked in. He started going through his options as if he were trying to fix a broken cooling system with few parts and not a lot of time. Can we speed up? What is our real top speed, not the safe one? The reactor can get too much power to give the engines more power. But this could lead to a huge failure. The system hasn't been tested in more than 300 years. What are the chances of a catastrophic failure? Can't figure it out without more information. It could be anywhere from 15% to 50%, depending on how long the overcharge lasts. Jake laughed again, but this time it was real. He was running for his life in a 300-year-old warship that might blow up if he pushed it too hard. Professional killers with modern weapons were chasing him. A week ago, his biggest worry was whether or not his boss would let him take time off. Put too much power into the reactor, he said. If we're going to die, we might as well die quickly. Charging too much now, Captain. You should make sure that any loose items are safe. This could get rough. The ship's vibration changed from a low hum to a deep, powerful thrumming that Jake could feel in his bones. The stars on the screen started to move faster. The speed pushed him back into his chair. "What is the new intercept time?" he asked. "They won't catch us before we get to the minimum safe jump distance." "But Captain, we have a new issue." "Of course we do. What's next?" Two of the ships chasing have begun firing. Low-yield plasma bolts. Shots to warn. Jake saw threat indicators light up on his tactical display. The bolts flew by the Indomitable so quickly that the ship's basic shields could feel the heat. Jake said, "They're trying to scare us into stopping." "Yes. But the next volley probably won't be a warning. They're getting their weapons ready for a full attack." Jake's hands were hovering over the weapons console. The targeting system was 300 years old, but it still worked. His display clearly showed the ships that were following him. Their transponders showed that they were the HFY military surplus ships that Aegis had seen before. "Captain, I have to point out that firing on these ships would be an act of aggression that the Galactic Council would call. Aegis, they shot at us first." "Captain, they shot near us technically." The tactical display showed that another volley was coming. The plasma bolts weren't warnings this time. They were aimed right at the engines of the Indomitable. "Move out of the way," Jake yelled. "Captain, I thought you wanted to stay away from aggressive moves until..." "Now Aegis." The ship rolled hard to the left. Jake's stomach lurched as the fake gravity tried to make up for it. The plasma bolts shot through the space where the Indomitable had been just a few seconds before. Jake told them to return fire. "Captain, are you sure? They're trying to stop us or kill us." "Yes, I'm sure." "Fire." The railguns on the Indomitable spoke for the first time in 300 years. Jake saw magnetically accelerated projectiles, basically very dense metal rods moving at incredibly high speeds, shoot out toward the ships that were following them on his screen. The HFY ships tried to get away, but they weren't ready for that kind of response from what they thought was a broken-down freighter. When two railgun rounds hit the first ship's shields, they lit up brightly. The shields stayed up but just barely. Aegis said, "Their shields are getting weaker." "But, Captain, I have to point out that we are now in an active combat situation with ships that probably have support nearby." "Can we jump now?" "No. We need 8 more minutes to get far enough away from Jupiter's gravity well to be safe." 8 minutes. Jake looked at the tactical display while the HFY ships got back together. They weren't going to attack directly again. Instead, they were moving apart to try to surround the Indomitable. "They're boxing us in," Jake said. "Yes, Captain. Normal ways to follow someone. They will try to get us into a place where we can't get away." "No, not if I heard them first." "Can you find firing solutions for both ships at the same time, Aegis?" "Yes, Captain. Our railgun capacitors, on the other hand, need 30 seconds between full volleys." "I'm not looking for full volleys. I want to keep them on their toes. Fire that changes in patterns that are hard to predict. Make them believe we have more weapons than we do." "Captain, that's an interesting trick." Doing the math now. The Indomitable started to move through space, firing one railgun round at a time at random times. The HFY ships tried to get closer, but every time they did, another projectile made them turn around and run away. Jake wasn't trying to kill them. He couldn't because their shields were at full strength. But he could keep them on their toes. 5 minutes to jump distance, Aegis said. One of the HFY ships made a brave move by speeding up to cross the Indomitable's path. Jake figured out what they were up to, trying to get ahead of him and make him slow down. "Hit them now," Jake said. Full volley, focused fire. 3 railgun rounds fired at the same time, all hitting the same spot on the ship's shields. The first 2 hit the barrier and flared up. The third one went through. The metal rod hit the ship's hull while moving at a speed close to that of light. It didn't blow up. Railguns don't use explosives. The weapon was the kinetic energy itself. The projectile went right through the ship's armor, through its inside and out the other side, leaving a hole big enough for a car to fit through. The HFY ship's icon on Jake's screen changed from yellow to red. Its engines flickered and then went out. Air escaped through several holes in the hull. "Direct hit, Captain. The ship is broken but still whole. It looks like life support is stable. There is a good chance that the crew will survive." Jake was both sick and happy at the same time. He hadn't murdered anyone, but he had stopped them. The second HFY ship stopped chasing right away and went to help its damaged friend. 2 minutes to jump distance, said Aegis. The third ship chasing the ship, the Valerian, is still getting closer, but it's keeping a safe distance. "Smart," Jake said under his breath. They just saw us take down a ship that was part of the military surplus with a 300-year-old rust bucket. To be fair, Captain, we are a rusty old warship that has been around for 300 years. It's important to make the difference. Jake smiled anyway. Jump distance achieved, said Aegis. Ready to go faster than light travel when you say so. Jake looked at the tactical display one last time. The Valerian ship stayed put and watched. In the distance, Ganymede Station stood out. His companion was stabilizing the disabled Kethrii ship behind him. Jump, Jake told him. Take us away from here. Space twisted, and the Indomitable disappeared from Jupiter's space, taking Jake Morrison and 300 years' worth of buried secrets to an unknown future. Jake's chest hurt because the Veil Nebula was so beautiful. Newborn stars lit up clouds of cosmic gas that swirled around in purple, blue, and green. The Indomitable floated through the thick clouds, making it hard for anyone looking for them to see them. Jake had been here for 3 days and he still didn't know what to do next. He was sitting on the bridge, eating a ration pack he had bought at the station before things went wrong. The food was bland and chewy, but it was better than the old stuff he had found in the ship's kitchen. Aegis had been running diagnostics all the time, fixing what it could and keeping track of what it couldn't. Captain, Aegis said out of the blue, breaking the peaceful silence. I've been thinking about our situation. Yes? What have you come to? We can't run forever. We don't have a lot of supplies, the ship needs more repairs than I can do myself, and at some point we'll have to dock somewhere to get fuel and food. We will be weak when we do. Jake put down his food pack. I know. I've been thinking about that as well. Any great ideas? Yes, actually. Captain, when I was activated, I sent out a standard authentication code, which is a security protocol used by the Terra Defense Force. It was part of my boot sequence, so it happened automatically. Okay. So what? So I've been keeping an eye out for answers. Captain, Q-ships were meant to work together as a network. We were never meant to fight by ourselves. Jake felt a shiver go down his back. Aegis, are you saying that there are more Q-ships out there? I am telling you that in the last 72 hours, 17 Q-ships have responded to my authentication code. Jake got up so quickly that his chair rolled back. 17? But you said that most of them were thrown away or lost. Apparently, more people lived than what official records said. I'm getting telemetry data right now. Would you like me to show you where they are? Yes. Yes, for sure. The main view screen changed to show a map of space where humans live. There were 17 points of light that blinked on and off across the display, spread out over many star systems. There were names for each one like USCS Resolute, USCS Defiant, USCS Vigilant, and so on. Where are they? Jake asked. Who has them? Querying now, Captain. The answers include basic status updates. Aegis stopped and started working. This is not what I expected. What? What is unexpected? The Terran Historical Museum on Mars owns the USCS Resolute right now. For the last 90 years, it has been on display as a civilian freighter exhibit. The museum staff doesn't know that their most important exhibit is a working warship. Jake couldn't believe it and laughed. You're joking. I don't joke, Captain. The USCS Defiant is a research station in the Kuiper Belt that is owned by a group of mining companies. Scientists studying the composition of ice have been living there for the past 15 years. They don't know they're living on a military ship. As Aegis put the data together, the display showed more information. Jake read through it, and with each entry he was more and more amazed. A human salvage dealer owned the USCS Vigilant and thought it was a broken-down cargo hauler. The USCS Relentless was being used as a storage space on a faraway colony. It was sitting on the ground with its landing gear always out. The USCS Phoenix was really in a Valerian junkyard, where it was going to be thrown away next month. Jake whispered, "They're everywhere." 300 years of hiding in plain sight. The original plan for spreading out worked pretty well, Aegis said. Earth's military made sure that even if our existence was discovered, we couldn't all be killed at once by hiding the Q-ships as civilian ships and spreading them out across human space. Can you get in touch with them? Can their AIs talk to one another? Already doing it, Captain. But I have to say that most of these ships are in bad shape. The Resolute's AI says that its museum display systems make it hard for it to use a lot of power. The Defiant is working, but civilians who don't know what it really is are using it right now. Only 6 of the 17 ships are in the same shape as ours. Damaged but still able to work. Jake walked back and forth on the bridge, his mind racing. How about the owners? The people who own these ships? Different situations, Captain. Some are businesses. Some are people who are not public. 3 are owned by governments as historical artifacts. 2 of them are registered to schools. But they all have people connected to them in some way? That's right. According to Terra Defense Force rules, only registered human commanding officers with the right biometric clearance can fully activate Q-ships. The AIs can do some things on their own, but they need a human captain to do everything. Jake stopped walking around and looked at the map with the blinking lights. 17 boats. 17 people who had accidentally come into possession of pieces of humanity's hidden history. Aegis, what will happen if we connect them to the internet? All of them? That would depend on the situation, Captain. But together, 17 operational Q-ships would be a big military asset. More importantly, they would be proof that the first contact between humans was real. The Galactic Council would go crazy. An accurate evaluation. They have put a lot of money into making sure this information stays hidden. 17 active Q-ships, each carrying the same secret records, would make it impossible to hide them. Jake sat back down and stared at the screen. One of those flashing lights was on Earth itself. It was the USCS Steadfast, which is now owned by the New Jersey Aerospace Heritage Foundation. He thought of a small-town museum, not knowing that their dusty display could destroy 300 years of official history. Are you able to talk to the other AIs in a safe way? Jake wanted to know. Already set up, Captain. We are using encrypted channels that are older than modern ways of communicating in space. Effectively unbreakable by today's standards. Okay. I want to know how many of those ships could really fly if they had to. And how many of the people who own them would be willing to turn them on if they knew the truth. Aegis was quiet for a few seconds, which is a long time for an AI. Captain, you are suggesting something very important. I think we should stop running and start pushing back. The Council didn't want anyone to know about this. They wanted to pay me off or kill me. Well, I don't want to be scared anymore and I'm not for sale. We're taking the whole lie with us if we go down. Hold on a second, Captain. I'm talking to the other AIs. Jake waited and looked at the lights on the display that were blinking. 17 artificial intelligences that had been waiting for 300 years were talking to each other, sharing information, and doing math. Report put together, Aegis finally said. 8 of the 17 Q-ships could be ready for use within a week if they were properly activated and repaired. In a month, 4 more could be up and running. The other 5 would need a lot of work, but they can still be saved. And what about the owners? That's more complicated, Captain. 3 ships are owned by companies that would probably work with the Council to give up the ships. 2 are in the hands of academics, which is hard to predict. 4 are owned by private people whose psychological profiles are not complete. 1 is owned by a human government that would be under a lot of political pressure. That's 10 ships that have been found. What about the other 7? The other 7 offer some interesting options. For example, Dr. Patricia Hayes leads a research team on the USCS Defiant right now. My AI counterpart says that Dr. Hayes has been complaining about ship's strange abilities for years. She thinks the ship is more than it seems, but she doesn't have any proof. Jake leaned in. What kinds of abilities that can't be explained? The ship's power generation is 4 times more than that of any civilian design. When its hull gets damaged, it fixes itself. Last year, when a pirate ship came close to the research station, automated defense systems turned on for a short time before turning off. Dr. Hayes has been asking questions that make people uncomfortable ever since. Sounds like someone who wants answers. Exactly, Captain. The owner of the USCS Vigilant, a salvage operator named Tony Bennett, has also been trying to get into the ship's computer core for months. He knows that something is hidden in the systems, but he can't get around the security measures. Jake grinned. They're already on guard. They just don't know everything. Right. There are other people like them too. Rachel Kim, a person, owns the USCS Phoenix, which is in a Valerian junkyard. She won't sell it even though she has received many generous offers. She told the people who run the yard that the ship feels important, but she can't say why. Can you get in touch with these people, Aegis? The ones who are already asking? Yes, I can send messages through secure channels. But Captain, once we do this, we can't go back. We will be open about who we are. The Council's answer will be quick and strong. Jake thought about the last few days. Running. Hiding. Always looking over his shoulder. He thought about the millions of credits that had been offered to him to just walk away and forget. He thought about the disabled Kethrii ship that was floating near Jupiter. It was proof that even an old Q-ship could fight when it had to. Get in touch with them, Jake said firmly. Dr. Hayes. Tony Bennett. Rachel Kim. Every one of them. Anyone who is already suspicious or might be willing to listen. Be honest with them. Give them the files. And ask them if they want to know what their ships really are. Captain, I'm starting the contact protocols now. Within the hour, messages will come. Jake got up and walked to the view screen to look at the clouds of nebula that were swirling around. 17 old warships were waking up somewhere out there in human space. And 17 people were about to find out that they owned parts of a secret that could change everything. He said softly, Aegis, what do you think will happen? Not sure, Captain. But I can tell you this. I have been silent for 300 years, keeping the truth that the galaxy wanted to bury. For the first time since I was made, I feel something like hope. Hope for what? Hope that people are ready to remember what they really are. Jake didn't expect the answers to come so quickly. Dr. Patricia Hayes answered from the Kuiper Belt Research Station within 6 hours. I knew it, was all she said. Send it all. It took Tony Bennett 8 hours to respond from his salvage yard. Either you're lying or you're crazy. No matter what, I want in. Rachel Kim sent a video message from the junkyard in Valoria where she worked. Jake saw a woman in her 30s with grease-stained coveralls standing in front of what had to be the USS Phoenix. I've been dreaming about this ship for 2 years, she said, her voice shaking a little. Dreams about space battles and Earth fighting back against aliens. My therapist says I'm under a lot of stress. But you are telling me that those dreams are real, right? That this ship remembers? By the end of the first day, 11 of the 17 Q-ship owners had said yes. Just as Aegis had said, 2 companies had told the police about the contact right away. 3 others had not answered at all. They were either scared, confused, or just didn't believe the messages were real. But 11 was enough. Jake was working with Dr. Hayes, who turned out to be a physicist with a sharp sense of humor and no time for red tape, when Aegis interrupted with an urgent alert. Captain, we have a big problem. Jake's stomach sank. What kind of problem? Long-range sensors are picking up a fleet heading toward the Veil Nebula. 23 ships. There are Valerian, Catharii, and ships from 6 other species in the mix. They are moving in a pattern to find something. They found us. Not exactly, Captain. The nebula is very big and we are still hidden. But they know we're somewhere in this area, and they have enough people to search it thoroughly. I think they will find us in less than 48 hours. Jake opened the tactical display. 23 ships moved through the nebula like a net, covering a lot of ground. This wasn't a quick job for a bounty hunter. This was planned, real, and scary. Aegis, how many of our Q-ships are really ready to fly if we need them to? Right now? The Indomitable is the only ship that is fully operational. With Dr. Hayes' help, the Defiant could be ready to fly in 12 hours. The Vigilant needs about 30 hours. The other people need more time. So, we might have 3 ships against 23. Yes, Captain. The tactical situation is not good. Jake was about to say something when another alert went off. This one made him feel very scared. Aegis announced, incoming transmission. Source is the name of the search fleet's flagship. Captain Morrison, they want to talk to you directly. They know who you are. They do, Jake said under his breath. Let them through. The view screen changed to show a conference room that was clearly on a fancy ship. There were a lot of aliens at the table, but the only one who spoke was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and a Galactic Council uniform. Captain Morrison, she said in a calm, professional voice. My name is Lisa Chin and I'm an ambassador. I'm a member of the Galactic Council's diplomatic corps. I want to talk to you about what's going on with you right now. Jake put his arms across his chest. Let me guess. You're here to give me another offer. Chin said, I'm here to give you context. Can I be honest? Please do. Chin leaned in. You've turned on a Q-ship. You've gotten in touch with other people. You want to make public information that has been secret for 300 years. I get it, you think you've been lied to and you have. That part is true. But before you make your final choice, I want you to know what will happen if you do. Tell me more. Chin said, if you let this information out, you will throw the whole galactic order into chaos. Her voice was serious but not threatening. The peaceful integration of humanity into the galactic community. We've made friends, trade networks, and political alliances. People work in all of the major institutions. People respect, value, and keep us safe. Because the galaxy thinks we're not dangerous, Jake said. Chin said, because the galaxy trusts us. 300 years of working together built that trust. If people suddenly find out that the first contact was violent and that we were conquered and then gaslit into forgetting, they will lose trust right away. She pointed to the aliens who were sitting at her table. These are people from 7 different species. Their governments are scared, so they are here. Not of what people can do in war, that's not the real threat. They're scared of what will happen when 4 billion people find out they've been controlled for 300 years. One of the aliens, a HFY with shiny scales, spoke up, and its translator made the words sound like they were clicking. Captain Morrison, my government has given me permission to make a formal apology for what happened in 2186. We will pay for what we did. We will admit the truth in official documents. But we ask that you let us handle the disclosure slowly and carefully so that things don't get out of hand. Jake laughed in a bitter way. You want me to help you hide it more slowly? We want to stop a war, Ambassador Chin said in a stern voice. Captain, think about this. What happens when you let those files go? People want reparations from a dozen different species. Trust breaks down. Trade routes are closed. Human colonies that rely on alien technology to stay alive suddenly run out of supplies. And yes, some people will want revenge and want to punish the galaxy for lying to us. She looked up statistics on a side screen. 3 billion people live on other planets now. Most of them live in stations and colonies that are there because of cooperation between galaxies. People die if that cooperation falls apart. A lot of people, maybe millions. Jake felt the heaviness of what she said. He thought about Ganymede Station where aliens and humans work together. He thought about the colonies, the trading posts, and the diverse communities that had formed over the past 300 years. So your answer is to keep lying? He asked. Chin said, my answer is to be careful when I tell the truth. Please work with us, Captain Morrison. We'll admit what happened and make it right. But we'll do it in a way that doesn't destroy everything that people have built. Jake looked at the avatar of Aegis on his console. What do you think? I am programmed to keep the truth, Captain. But I am also programmed to keep people safe. There is some truth to Ambassador Chen's worries. Captain, Chen said, I have the authority to give you full immunity, a formal role in the disclosure process, and yes, a lot of money. You can help fix the problem. Or you could be the one who brought down galactic civilization and killed millions of people in the process. She stopped for a moment and then said more quietly, I understand that you didn't want this responsibility. You just won an auction for a ship. But here we are. You have the choice. Jake didn't say anything for a long time. The bridge suddenly felt very small, like the walls were closing in. The view screen behind him still showed those 23 ships looking for him and getting closer. Captain, Aegis said quietly, I'm getting messages from the owners of the other Q ships. They want help. Dr. Hayes wants to know if she should go ahead and turn on the Defiant. Tony Bennett is asking for directions. Rachel Kim says, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. They are waiting for you to make a choice. How much time do I have? Chen asked Jake. She said, the fleet will probably find you in 2 days. But Captain, you can't hide forever, even if you run. In the end, you'll need food, repairs, and contact with people. If we have to, we can keep looking for years. You get to choose when this ends. Jake walked over to the view screen and looked out at the nebula. 17 ships out there knew the same thing he did. 17 people had become guardians of history by accident. And now everyone was looking to him, a maintenance worker who had spent all of his life savings on what he thought was junk, to decide the future of humanity. Jake finally said, I need time to think. Chin said, you have 24 hours. Then we start boarding operations. If we have to, we will take the Q ships by force, and those who fight back will face serious consequences. I don't want that to happen, Captain. No, I really don't. The transmission stopped, and Jake was left alone with Aegis in the dim light of the bridge. Captain? Aegis gently pushed. Jake fell into his chair. Aegis, am I being selfish? Is it worth risking millions of lives to tell the truth? I can't answer that, Captain. It's a matter of human values and I'm not one of them. But you have a thought. I do. Do you want to hear it? Please. There was a moment of silence from Aegis. For 300 years, I have kept a truth hidden that powerful people wanted to bury. I thought this truth was important. But Ambassador Chin is also right. Truth without wisdom can do a lot of damage. Maybe the real question isn't whether to tell the truth, but how to do it in a way that respects both honesty and duty. Jake shut his eyes. You have 24 hours to make a choice. A guy who was worried about paying his rent a week ago now has the weight of history, the lives of millions, and the dignity of his whole species on his shoulders. Finally, Jake said, get me in touch with all 11 Q-ship owners who replied. We're going to talk about this together. This isn't just my choice anymore, it's ours. It took 3 hours to set up the conference call. It wasn't easy to get 11 people spread out across human space on a secure connection, especially when half of the galaxy was looking for them. But Aegis and the other Q-ship AIs were able to do it by sending the signal through old Terra Defense Force communication networks that no one knew were still around. Jake saw 11 very different faces on the screen, which was split into 11 parts. Dr. Patricia Hayes was sitting in what looked like a small research station cabin. Her gray hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. It looked like Tony Bennett was in a repair shop, with tools all over the workbench behind him. Rachel Kim was still in that junkyard, sitting on the Phoenix's hull like it was a park bench. There were more people. Ashley Rodriguez was a young woman who owned the USCS Steadfast and worked as a museum curator in New Jersey. Frank Wilson, an older man, had inherited the USCS Relentless from his father and was using it as a grain silo on a farming colony. David Park, the captain of the USCS Valiant, thought it was a fixer-upper cargo ship when he bought it. 11 normal people who, by accident, became the most important people in the galaxy. Okay, Jake said, feeling strange. I guess I should tell you why I called this meeting. The Galactic Council has given us 24 hours to turn over the ships and agree to their terms for a managed disclosure of the truth. They're coming in with force if we don't let them. Let them come, Tony Bennett said right away, his rough voice breaking up the call. I've looked at the files your AI sent. What Ambassador Chin said about wanting to carefully manage, the truth is just another lie. They had 300 years to be honest with us. They didn't want to. But she's right about what will happen, Dr. Hayes said. I've been making models. If this information comes out all of a sudden without any warning or preparation, it could cause huge problems for society and the economy. The relationship between humans and aliens could break down. Supply chains would stop working. People could die. We could die if we keep lying, Rachel Kim said in a low voice. My grandmother lived during the time of integration. She always said that something about first contact didn't feel right, like the story didn't make sense. She passed away without realizing she was correct. How many other people should know the truth about their own past? Frank Wilson cleared his throat. I'm just a farmer. I don't know anything about politics in space or how to cause social unrest. But I know how it feels to be lied to. And I know that doing the right thing can be hard, messy, and cause problems. That doesn't make it wrong. Ashley Rodriguez, the museum's curator, hadn't said anything until now. I've been giving tours of the Steadfast for 10 years, telling people it was a civilian cargo ship from the early colonial period. I've told that lie to thousands of kids in school. If we do this, if we tell the truth, I'll have to look all those people in the eye and say I was wrong. That their teachers were wrong. That their books about history were wrong. So, what do you want to do? He asked her. Ashley smiled, but it was a sad smile. I want to be honest with them. No matter how hard it is. Especially since it's hard. The ship's captain, David Park, spoke up. I've been looking at this from a practical point of view. The council is giving us a managed disclosure. That means they control the story, the timing, and the spin. They'll make themselves look good and make it seem like we're overreacting or being unreasonable. We lose the moral high ground before we even start. So what else can we do? Dr. Hayes asked. David said, we control the disclosure. We let everyone see everything at once. Not just people but every species in the galaxy. No spin, no management, and no press releases that are carefully written. Give people the facts and let them decide for themselves. Jake felt something change in his chest. A dump of data. We can send everything Aegis has, every file and record, over every communication network we can get to at the same time. Exactly, David said. The council can't hide what everyone already knows. If we frame it right and make it clear that we don't want revenge, just recognition, we might be able to avoid the worst of the backlash. Tony Bennett laughed. You're talking about breaking into communication networks in space and leaking secret information. That is about 15 different kinds of against the law. Rachel Kim said, so is hiding first contact for 300 years. Is that even possible? Jake asked. Aegis? Can we send the files out to everyone at once? Yes, in theory, Aegis said. The Q-ship network was made so that it could communicate deeply. If all 11 active ships work together, we could use military, civilian, commercial, and government networks across known space to access and broadcast at the same time. Setting it up would take about 4 hours and it would be easy to find right away. However, once it started, the data would spread faster than it could be stopped. 4 hours? Jake said again. The council's fleet will find us before that. Dr. Hayes said, not if we move. Captain Morrison, you are hiding in the Veil Nebula. That's a good idea for one ship. But if all 11 of us are in different places, they can't stop us all at once. They would have to divide their troops. Jake could see the plan coming together. We coordinate the broadcast from a number of places. They may stop some of us, but others will get through. Frank Wilson said, "It's risky. They might think we're too dangerous and just blow us up." Ashley said with surprising confidence, "They won't. We're people on ships made for people. If the council starts killing people to keep quiet about how they controlled people, it will prove our point better than any files could. They want us to give up or leave without making a fuss. They don't want to be martyrs in public." The conversation went on, with 11 people arguing, questioning, and debating. Jake listened as they worked out the details, brought up issues, and offered solutions. These people were not politicians or soldiers. They were a farmer, a ship captain, a scientist, a salvage worker, a museum curator, and other normal people who found themselves in an extraordinary situation. Dr. Hayes finally asked for a vote. "Everyone who wants to go ahead with the coordinated broadcast, knowing the risks and being ready for the consequences, say aye." They answered one by one. "Yes, yes, yes, all of them." Jake looked around his bridge, the 300-year-old control panels, the worn captain's chair, and the view screen showing the beautiful nebula that had been his hiding place. He thought about what Ambassador Chin had said. He thought about what could go wrong. But he also thought about the stories his grandmother told him about integration and how people grew up in a world where they were told they were lucky to be welcomed to the stars. He thought about how for 300 years, people thought they were the galaxy's charity case instead of knowing they had fought for their place. "Yes," Jake said firmly. Dr. Hayes said, "Then it's unanimous. We do this as a group. Start coordination protocols for Aegis units. Get your ships ready to leave, everyone else. We're going to broadcast in 4 hours." The conference call was over, but right away the Q-ship AIs started talking on their own network to make a plan that had been waiting 300 years to be put into action. Jake stood up and stretched, feeling strangely calm. That was the choice. No more running, no more hiding, and no more thinking about what to do. "Captain," Aegis said, "I am getting one last message from Ambassador Chin. She wants to know what you think of their offer." "Let her through." Chin came on screen and looked tired. "Captain Morrison, have you made a choice?" "We have," Jake said. "We're turning down your offer." Chin shut her eyes for a short time. "Captain, please think about it again. What you want to do." Jake cut in and said, "What we're planning is to tell the truth. Not a carefully controlled version of the truth. Not a cleaned-up version of the truth that makes everyone feel better. The truth about what happened in 2186 without any filters. You'll make things worse." "Maybe," Jake said. "Or maybe people are stronger than you think. We might be able to handle the truth. We might deserve a chance to try." For a long time, Chin didn't say anything. "When?" "Very soon." "Jake, Captain Morrison, I want you to understand something. I'm not against you. I'm also a person. I've spent my whole career trying to make the future better for our species. And I really think this will hurt us." "I know you do," Jake said, and he meant it. "But Ambassador, with all due respect, you don't get to say what people can handle." "Yes, we do. All 4 billion of us. Together." Chin nodded slowly. "Well, I guess there's nothing else to say but good luck. You will need it." The transmission was over. Jake looked at Aegis. "How long until we're done?" 3 hours and 42 minutes, Captain. All of the Q ships are getting into position. The network for broadcasting is being set up. We won't be able to stop it once we start." Jake sat back in his captain's chair and waited for the truth about humanity to finally come home. At 0300 Universal Standard Time on a Thursday morning, the show went out. Most of the people on Earth were sleeping. Most of the galaxy was going about its regular business. And then, at the same time, the files showed up on every major communication network in known space. Jake stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the data flow out. Video from 2186 shows the Kethrii ships coming down to Earth. Audio recordings of the ultimatum. Reports from the defense of the planet's battles. List of casualties. Reports of victory. And then there was the aftermath, the galactic conference, the secret deals, and the planned hiding of the truth. A flood of information that no one could stop made everything public. Jake's console lit up with alerts in just a few minutes. News networks all over the world were cutting into regular programming. There was a lot of activity on social media. When millions of people tried to access the files at the same time, government servers crashed because they couldn't handle the traffic. Captain Aegis said, "We are getting requests for communication from more than 4,000 sources. News outlets, government officials, and regular people. Everyone wants to talk to you. Don't pay attention to them right now," Jake said, staring at the data on his screen. "Let the facts speak for themselves." The galaxy's response was quick and disorganized. The HFY government first said that the files were fake and that they were not true. That went on for about 6 hours until their own historians confirmed that the data was real. Then they made a formal statement acknowledging the 2186 attack and saying they were deeply sorry for historical misunderstandings. The Valerian hegemony took a different approach. They put out their own statement saying they had always planned to tell the truth at an appropriate time, and that this premature disclosure was dangerous and reckless. There was an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council that lasted 3 days. But what surprised everyone, even Jake, was how people reacted. There was definitely anger. There were protests on Earth and in every major human colony. People wanted to know what their governments had known and when they had known it. People wanted reparations, formal apologies, and people to be held responsible. But there was something else as well. Something that the galaxy wasn't ready for. Pride. Jake saw it in the messages that were coming in fast on his console. People all over space were not only angry about being lied to, but they were also proud of what their ancestors had done. Proud that people fought back and won when they were going to be conquered. Proud that the governments of Earth had built a secret defense network that was strong enough to keep them safe. Proud that people weren't the lucky charity case the galaxy had made them out to be. At first, the change was small, but Jake noticed it in the little things. Merchants who had been accepting bad trade terms suddenly changed their contracts. Diplomats from other countries entered talks with their heads held high. People who lived in colonies and paid protection fees to local powers quietly stopped doing so. No one wanted war. No one wanted to get back at anyone. People just stopped letting themselves be treated like they were less than. Jake got a message 3 weeks after the show that made him smile. It came from Ambassador Chin. Captain Morrison. I told you this would make things crazy. I was right, it did. But I was wrong about something else. I thought people couldn't handle the truth. We are stronger than I thought we were. The council has asked me to send an invitation. They want you to speak at a hearing about making peace with the past. No threats, no charges. Just testimony. They want to hear your side of the story from you. You don't have to go. But I think you should. Signed, Lisa Chin. Jake thought about it for 5 seconds before saying yes. The hearing took place on a neutral station in the Centauri system. Jake walked into a room with representatives from 24 different species and sat down at a simple table. No lawyers, no statements ready. It was just him, Aegis's data files, and the truth. He talked for 2 hours, answering questions about how he found the Indomitable, what he learned, and why he chose to share the information. Some of the alien representatives looked uncomfortable as they listened, while others looked genuinely interested. When he was done, a HFY representative, who was not the same one he had talked to before, stood up. Captain Morrison, I apologize on behalf of the HFY Dominion for the attack in 2186 and for our part in keeping these events a secret. We made a mistake. We were too proud and paid the price. We have learned a lot since then, but that doesn't make what we did right. The apology was shown live on networks all over the galaxy. It wouldn't solve all the problems, but it was a good start. Jake became an unlikely symbol over the next few months. Not of human violence or warrior culture, but of plain honesty. He did interviews, spoke at colleges, and went on tour with the Indomitable, which the council had agreed he could keep as a protected historical artifact. Other Q-ship owners took similar routes. Dr. Hayes wrote a book about the ship's technical abilities and how they showed how smart people can be under stress. Tony Bennett made the Vigilant a museum that people could visit. Rachel Kim really did get the Phoenix flying and used it to give tours, showing people what 300 years of human engineering could still do. Ashley Rodriguez did something that Jake really liked. She reopened the Steadfast exhibit at her museum, but this time with correct information. School groups would go on tours of the ship and learn about the first real contact between people. Some of the kids were scared by the violent past. Most people were very interested. They all left knowing that their species had earned its place in the galaxy. Jake was back on Ganymede Station 6 months after the broadcast. This was where it all began. He had been asked to give a talk at a business summit about trade between humans and aliens. He gave a good speech and then he went to the same auction house where he had bought the Indomitable. They were holding another auction. Jake walked around out of curiosity and looked at the ships that were for sale. 20 million credits were paid for a pretty Valerian cruiser. A HFY transport went for 8 million. The auctioneer then called out Lot 642. Jake's breath stopped. It was another ship from the time before contact, damaged and left to rot, and everyone in the room thought it was worthless. The auctioneer said, "The opening bid is 6,000 credits for scrap value," with a tone of disdain. There was no noise in the room. No one wanted another piece of trash. Jake stared at his tablet. His account now showed a lot more than 47,000 credits. He was comfortable because he had made money from book deals, speaking fees, and a large settlement from the Galactic Council. But he knew more than that. He knew what to look for. He looked up the ship's hull number, which was USCS Harbinger. He raised his hand. 6,000 from the person in the back, the auctioneer said with a sigh. Going once, twice sold. Jake felt someone next to him as he finished filling out the paperwork for the purchase. He looked up and saw a young woman, maybe 25, with wide eyes staring at the Harbinger. Isn't that a Q-ship? She asked. Like yours. Jake smiled. Maybe. There is only one way to find out. Are you going to turn it on? Jake said, I'm going to learn its story. Every ship has one. This one has been waiting 300 years to say it. The woman thought about it for a moment before taking out her tablet. I don't have a lot of money, but I'm a pretty good engineer if you need someone to help you. I know everything there is to know about the Indomitable. I'd love to help bring another Q-ship back to life. Jake looked at her. She was young, eager, and full of the same curiosity that had made him buy a worthless ship at auction. He thought about Dr. Hayes, Tony Bennett, Rachel Kim, and the other people who had chosen to learn the truth even though it was dangerous. What's your name? He asked. Megan. Megan Foster. Welcome to the crew of the USCS Harbinger, Megan Foster. Let's go find out what she's been hiding. Jake's tablet buzzed as they walked together toward the new ship. Aegis sent a message on the Indomitable. Captain, I see that the Harbinger has a system architecture that I'm used to. It looks like it has an AI core like mine. Should I try to get in touch? Jake wrote back, yes. Get her up. Another Q-ship needs to come home now. He stopped at the Harbinger's boarding ramp and turned around to look at the auction house one last time. The galaxy went about its business behind him, forever changed by the truth that one maintenance worker had refused to let stay hidden. Jake bought a spaceship at an auction that wasn't worth anything. One old warship at a time, he had restored humanity's dignity. And deep inside the Harbinger, another AI that had been quiet for 300 years was starting to wake up. It was ready to tell its own story about what humanity was really like when the galaxy first came calling. Jake smiled as he realized that the adventure was just beginning.